Thank you all for being here. My name is Joy Brand Richardson. I am coming to you from JCC Association. I'm the Vice President of Professional Development at JCC Association. And I'm really happy to have everyone here. As we go through our time together, we will be using the chat box to chat any questions that you may have. There will be time at the end for questions and answers. We have a panel of executive directors who will be joining us in a little bit, who will be talking with us about building strong teams at their JCCs. If I can ask everyone to put yourself on mute, that would be terrific. I'm going to go through a few reminders and things as we get ourselves started. Please use that chat box. We will be doing breakout rooms later during our time together, and we'll use those breakout rooms so that we can talk about what we are doing, whether it's at your department level or whether it's agency-wide, to build a strong team. So to get us started today, I'd like to set the stage with some mindfulness guidelines. I'd like everyone to try to be fully present. Give yourself time to disconnect from other distractions and put away cell phones if you can, and be fully present so that you can participate when we ask for participation time. Let's respect the experience of others. We're all coming to this from different paths and different experiences, and we should respect each person's perspective. This particular topic may have some really interesting and hard to discuss things about how to build strong teams, specifically during the difficult times that we've had during COVID and staff layoffs and furloughs and things like that. So please, let's all come to this with an open mind and lead with curiosity, not certainty. You may hear things that spark an interest, that propel you to explore deeper. So we're asking you to come to the time together with that in mind. We're hoping there won't be any technology issues, but please expect mistakes and don't expect closure. So this is really the opening of this topic of how to build a strong team. You're not necessarily going to get all the answers, but certainly this is going to start the conversation, whether it's the conversation that happens in your mind or whether you bring this to others on your team. But we're hoping that this really starts this conversation and this experience for you, and that you will be able to bring it to others in your agency as well. So in preparing for this webinar, I did some research on the importance of strong work teams, and our friends at Leading Edge were able to share some data with us. I'm going to share my screen now and show you just a few slides before we get started with our panelists. So here's my screen. And I'm hoping everyone can see that. So our session, Building Strong Teams, Why It Matters for Our JCCs. This is part of our talent management series. This is the 5th webinar in our series. And I'm going to share with you some of this data. So Leading Edge asked some important questions of people who filled out their employee engagement survey in 2019. And they talked about who are the stayers and who are the leavers. And the stayers are the committed staff who are committed to staying at the same JCC or in their organization for more than 5 years or for the next 5 years. And the leavers were people who expected to leave within the year. And what we found out from this information is that many people who considered themselves stayers, when they were asked, would you recommend your organization as a great place to work? 88% of stayers responded favorably. And only 36 of the people who were leavers responded favorably. So that just shows us that the culture that we're building amongst our staff teams really is important in how we think about who are the people that are staying and really invested in our JCCs, and who are the people who are thinking about leaving and already disengaged in many ways. That's a 50% swing. And if you think about your JCC and understanding who at your JCC might be the stayers or the leavers, what we know that during the past year, it's been very difficult. And regarding staffing and layoffs and the people that are still working at JCCs are taking on more responsibilities. They've doubled up. We have many people that are still working from home. We have a number of people who never work from home and we're always working in the JCC. And these are certainly remarkable days that we have that we hope that we will return to our before COVID staffing and understanding of how to build teams. But in the meantime, I wanted to make sure that we could see what this data was all about. And so another question was, my organization helps me stay motivated to do the best work almost every day. And you can see here that 78% of the stayers responded favorably. Excuse me. Only 27% of the leavers responded favorably. So when we think about who are the people on our staff, let's keep this in mind. How many of them are we helping to stay motivated each day? And the other question that they asked was, do you feel proud of the work that your JCC? And 95% of the stayers responded favorably. Only 51% of those that were actively thinking about leaving responded favorably. So being proud of an organization really resonates with those people that are planning on staying at your JCC or in their jobs. A large study from a major department store chain showed that customers consistently reported high engagement scores when they were in the service department, and the employees related high levels of engagement. And so we have to really think about staff who are happier and more engaged were able to pass this feeling on to their customers. And it was really important that they serve the community. Our customers are the people who come to our JCCs. They serve the community the best that they can. And it shows that through the employees who are engaged, that their customers are more engaged. And there was a Gallup poll that shows this as well. Employees answered, 1.4 million employees in 2014. Okay, that was a while ago, but it has a lot to do with the fact that engaged employees help our JCCs and our customers feel more engaged as well. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to now move us into our panel conversation. We have 3 panelists with us today. 3 executive directors. We have Judy Wolf Bolton, who is the CEO of the Ocean Marin JCC in San Rafael, California. We have Paul Geduldig, the CEO of the Peninsula JCC in Foster City, California. And we have Jill Madsen, the CEO of the JCC and Federation in Durham, North Carolina. And so I am going to be posing questions to these 3 wonderful panelists, understanding that our JCC Association benchmarking data has shown a lot of what I had just reviewed with you, that high engaged staff teams help us in our productivity, help us in our customer service. And these 3 have been chosen because they were doing such a great job in developing strong staffing teams. And so we're going to sort of popcorn the questions to each of them. And not each one will answer all the questions, but I'm going to start by asking them to tell us a little bit about themselves and their JCC, as far as how many staff they have on board. So if I can call on Jill to start us off.
Yes. Hi, everyone. As Joyce said, my name is Jill Madsen, and I am the CEO of Jewish for Good. We are an integrated community that includes the JCC, Jewish Family Services, the Israel Center, and the Jewish Community Foundation, all under one roof. We are one of the newer JCCs. We will turn 10 years old this summer. And prior to that, there was no infrastructure for a JCC. So it's a newer community, growing community. Typically, we would have about 60 employees year round and about 160 come summer when we open the pool and when we have summer camp happening. Of that, we typically have what we call 20 of our core team, our full-time professional team. During the past year, we have gone down to just those 20 and a smattering of very part-time frontline staff that are doing some Group X classes and some things of that nature. Other than that, we have a few people that are also doing a remote learning program. So in total, we're at about 35 people, but the bulk of all of our programs and services, of which we have not reduced or changed at all, are being done just by the 20 full-time people.
Thank you, Jill. Okay, and Paul, can you tell us about your JCC in Foster City?
Sure. The Peninsula JCC, it's in Foster City, just south of San Francisco in the Bay Area. We're a metro size, or pre-COVID, I would say, metro size JCC of getting up close to 10,000 members. We had 380 full and part-time staff. Now, at one point, we dipped down to about 140, and now I think we're up to about 160 or so. And my other experience, so Judy, who you'll hear from in a second, used to be my boss. She was my boss over at the Marin JCC for a while, about 15 years ago. But I'm really thinking back, I think a lot of what I learned about staff culture and building teams, I learned at the Atlanta JCC when I was 17 and I was a camp counselor and it was my first summer. So.
Okay, thank you, Paul. And Judy.
Well, I'm Judy Wolf Bolton from the Ocean Marin JCC. We are north of San Francisco. And I'm always thrilled when Paul and I can be on the same panel like this. It's a really wonderful occasion. And I love that he got most of his background from Atlanta, which he actually informed and helped guide us in the development of our JCC too, many years ago. We are normally a large JCC, $12, $13 million budget. We're now dipped down to about $6 million budget. And so that's where we are. We're starting our rebuild. We are not fully open by any means. We used to have about 310 staff, and now we're down to about 95. And so we're focused on how to really have, I like that idea of the stayers and the leavers. We certainly have our group who've been the stayers for many different reasons, and how do we really appreciate and develop the strong team of those who are here and who are also quite tired. I do want to add that when we are sitting here in a year after we closed.
Thank you. And so my first question to the group is, why is having a strong team important to you? And pre-COVID, what did a strong team mean? And if you could give us some insights into how you might have built that strong team. So Jill, why don't you take it first?
For me, I think the notion of why a strong team is important is core to, my values and how I lead. As a nonprofit, the bulk of our resource goes to personnel. What we do is the people of whom we have that do it. And so without our staff, we would not be able to live our mission, serving our communities. And so having a strong team to me is critical to ensure that we have the best people in place that feel supported and able to do their work so that we can be living that mission every single day. Having a strong team looks very differently now than what it did before. As I said, we're a smaller community. And so, in so many respects, the staff is so close across the board, no matter which department they work in. Most of our departments are a department of one. And so it's very important for them to work with one another. Otherwise, they would feel very isolated. And so we do on a regular basis a lot of things that just bring people together. And so that has definitely had to shift in the way that how are we making sure that people are not feeling isolated in doing their work and that they're able to connect with one another, even if they're not next door or, you know, going to and fro one another's offices or seeing each other in our atrium. So trying to really be thoughtful of those pathways. I think that this is definitely, as Joy, you said, one of the things that we've focused the most on in regards to benchmarking. And when I started in my position just under 6 years ago, in my opinion, our scores in this area were abysmal and an embarrassment. And it really wasn't a surprise to me why there had been turnover to the extent that there had been. And what I've found is with really investing time and energy into looking at our culture, we've had little to no turnover in the past 4 years. And so that just allows for continuity, which is so important, again, going back to us fulfilling our mission.
Terrific, thank you. And Judy, can you tell us a little bit about that as well, please?
Yes, pre-COVID, although it feels about 50 years ago, I can at least remember what it felt like. You know, for us, the strong team really reflect what you did with the leading edge slides in many ways. The focus was primarily for us on having all staff at all levels and all departments feeling engaged and feeling valued as both individually for the work, as part of the team in their department, and then about a center-wide team. How do they really, we are all in this together concept, which meant different things before COVID. But it really was that, you know, we all are rising and raising our organization to meet new accomplishments, and we all celebrate those together, and we all have an effort. So I think that that would be kind of some guiding concepts. There's a lot more that I could say around how did we go about achieving that, because the growth with the benchmarking staff satisfaction was a guide for us, and we were very focused on how to improve that and doing it through a variety of ways.
Okay, Judy, I'm going to come back to you for those pointers in a minute. And Paul, tell us, why is it important to have a strong staff team for you? What have you seen?
So 70% of our budget goes to personnel. It's like, if you ran a trucking company, would you go out and buy, you know, broken down trucks? No, you want the best people. You want to invest in them. You want to develop them. You want them happy, because we're in the people business. That's why. And yes, the benchmarking and all that stuff is important, and we did use it. And the questions are right there. Pull up the benchmarking. They'll tell you what are the criteria
exactly
to look for a good staff. It's not rocket science. Use that information, use the leading edge stuff. But here's the bottom line, is just treat people really well. That's what it comes down to. You know, get to know them, get to know their names, wish them happy birthday on their birthday, find out when they get a cat and ask them about their cat, and like get to know the staff and show that you care, and walk the halls and be seen. And at the Hanukkah fair, don't just walk in and walk out at the end. Like, if you bring your kids should be picking up the tables and moving them at the end of the thing and helping out. Like, roll up your sleeves, show that you're a member of the team, and that you're not above them, and that you're a part of them, and that you care about them. And if your HR department is reporting to your CFO, change that immediately, because it's not about compliance. It's about staff satisfaction and developing a leadership pipeline and and creating a happy team. And it shouldn't be run as another resource to manage to minimal standards.
Yeah,
That's wonderful, wonderful advice. And as I was scrolling through the faces on the screen, I see a lot of our HR friends who are nodding their heads and agreeing. And I also see a wide range of people on this call with us, from CEOs to some of our Merin Fellows who are more of the entry level group. And it's all really good information for every single one of you to take this and to elevate it within your groups. So thank you for doing that. So let's stay on the department level. How might you suggest that each department incorporate the concept of a strong staff team? And is it a top-down kind of thing, or can it be a bottom-up? Who wants to go first? Okay, Paul. Thank you.
It's both. I mean, I always tell my departments, like, lead with generosity, build it into the budget, create time for professional development, create time for teachers to have prep time, do nice things for your staff, like create that environment and people will work harder for you. But it also needs to come up from the bottom. You know, staff need to speak up if they've got great ideas. You need to find ways to empower them to have avenues to make suggestions and give ideas, and invest in your superstars. You know who they are, and find ways to take them out to lunch and to create leadership training programs for them and to develop them.
Terrific advice. Judy, what do you have on that?
Well, you know, I like a lot of the things that Paul and Jill are saying. I think I would go both advocating what Paul said about both from the top and from the bottom. I think it is a whole team experience. And I think that what we've really been able to do is encourage our department managers that's a very high priority for our organization, from me, that they create a strong team experience. And all of those components that are part of benchmarking have to be things that they are actively working on and are part of their own evaluation and their own goals in what they do as management. So it is top down from that point of view. And then I think it's bottom up. Just one example of a number of years ago, we created a staff promise, which is how we want to treat each other. And there's 10 attributes. That really came from the staff as a whole. So if we say share credit, you know, that means everybody shares in the credit of things that are being done. How they wanted to be treated with each other was something that they created, and then we all follow it as best we can. So those were a number of things that we did that kind of helped the direct staff, I would say, the direct line staff have a voice.
As a follow-up to that, Judy, how do you keep the staff accountable to that staff promise?
It's been hard. I will say that is hard. And, you know, it's just that we bring it up in a variety of ways. I mean, Paul mentioned earlier about having a variety of ways that you're showing that you care about the staff, you're doing education. We have a lot of things that we do pretty much on a monthly or an every other month basis. That is a way for us to take one of those promises and highlight it. Most of it is about being one team and every voice counts. So it's kind of a lot of things like that. And we use those phrases in our training of new staff. We go through the promise, and then we use those phrases for different things for different events.
Terrific, thank you. And Jill, tell us how you're doing this in Durham.
I think for me, the piece similar to what has been said is just the notion of having that blend of, you know, modeling, you know, what you hope for. And, you know, if it's something that you're doing and engaging, whether it be, as Paul mentioned, helping stack chairs and tables at the end of an event, or finding a way to show gratitude to your staff, that's sending a communication about expectations across the board. And it's also fostering relationships with, you know, such a wide breadth of community members and staff, which is really important. We've also really tried to push and think outside of the box of what might be unconventional things that would be helpful specifically now for people. You know, we were a team that regularly, you know, had our staff meetings, and there was always like fun and, you know, activities and treats and things like that. And so I was really great for the first 6 months of every 3 weeks, every single staff person got a package in the mail from me. I've spent more on postage in the past year than I think we've ever spent as an organization. But to me, it felt like it was a way for them to all open an envelope together and like do an activity together. But also when schools started going back remotely, and we began offering a remote learning program, before we opened it up to anybody in the community, I said all of our staff, because I'm the only one that does not have school-age kids, all of the others do, could have first dibs on a spot for free, so that they knew that there was childcare available, so that they could feel one less effort of stress. And that, you know, has a financial implication, but it also felt like if we are going to begin to move forward, that was an investment that we as an organization needed to make, because otherwise we weren't going to be able to function. And so I think, you know, just what are some of those out of the box ideas that you can do to try and create those strong teams and have people really feel like they're being supported and invested in.
I have one more question for the three of you before we go into breakouts, and this is going to lead us into the breakouts. And that's as we emerge from COVID and see people coming back to work or see less people working remotely, how do you plan on reestablishing or continuing some of the things that you built as a strong staff before 2020 happened? Judy, why don't you start us off?
Well, first I'll just say it's something I'm thinking about a lot, probably every day right now, because we are having a number of new staff being hired. So we're going to be a different kind of team because we had so many people that were either furloughed or laid off and have gone elsewhere. So now we have to rebuild. So that means a lot of new people. How do you integrate the new people? And how do you take care of those who've been with us during this time? So we're looking at doing, for example, this week we have a 2-hour virtual, in-service for all staff that is going to be based off of fun and resilience and getting to know each other. So that's part one. And then we're going to try to continue to do things like that are probably going to have to be virtual for a little while. And looking at other ways to have cross-department engagement, because right now everybody has been a little bit more siloed in their own area just because of the COVID circumstances. So I'm trying to figure out how to create more of that cross-department piece. And then we have some things that the board is going to be doing from an appreciation point of view. So to me, it's just sort of starting to have a plan that takes place a little bit, every few weeks right now. That's
great. Good advice. And Paul?
So I'd say during the pandemic, there are times when I feel like we've been great, and we talked about this a week ago when we were planning for this, and there are times where I have felt like, oh my gosh, I've failed my staff in so many ways. So I want to be honest with you all that it's really hard to do when we're separated like this, and when there's survivor guilt of staff that are still here, there's people who have taken on 2 and 3 jobs. It's a tough time, but we found little ways to do it, whether it's like the preschool and youth group, the youth departments do Fridays where they order French fries from different places on Fridays. We do a newsletter that I send out pretty much every week. Now it's every other week, where it's news about the JCC, news about what's going on with COVID, but it's also like little snapshots of personal news. Like I said, someone got a cat, someone got married, or whatever it is, just little bits of things like that. And then also, again, empowering. There are some people that are your natural connectors and your natural, like, creative people who know how to create a great staff event. Like, just empower them and find them, empower them, and let them do what they're best at. But yeah, we're putting a lot of thought into like how we bring people back, how they feel safe, how they feel appreciated, and how they feel like they're re-emerging in a sense from a cocoon that they've been in.
Mm-hmm. And Jill, what would you add to that?
I would just echo the same things that have already been said, of just that slow and steady approach and being very thoughtful of the way people are being onboarded and welcomed to the team, whether it be coming back after time away or coming back home, or being new to the team. There's just all three of those things happening simultaneously, which is not usually something that happens unless it's like, hey, it's the beginning of summer camp and you've got a few returners and some new folks all together. But, other than that, it's a unique situation.
Okay, terrific. A shameless plug here for the JCC Professional Conference that's going to be April 27th to the 29th. Open to anyone, all JCC professionals. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because what we just talked about onboarding, about hiring, there's going to be different kinds of sessions that will span this kind of a way to understand new ways of bringing staff back, to doing virtual hiring, things like that. And the link is in the chat for everyone to see. That's the link to the schedule. And then you'll be receiving information about how to register for the conference as well. So we're going to take the next 10 or so minutes to break you into small breakout rooms. I hope that you'll stick around and give your input in your small breakout rooms. There'll be 4 or 5 people in each room. And we really want you to talk about how are you thinking about, whether it's you're the head of a department or you're somebody in a department. You're thinking about how are we building a small and smart team? How are we building the agency-wide culture to be a really strong JCC team? So I am going to ask my colleague Yael Warwick to send us into breakout rooms. I'm hoping that most of you will stick around, and then we're going to come back for questions and answers. As we welcome people back, I'm going to ask you to mute yourselves again so that we
need to see like who's on the
don't hear
outliers
everybody.
here and how do we move them over.
Muted us, okay. And I'd like to ask Judy and Paul and Jill to give us any last minute thoughts or anything you heard in the group chats that you were part of. You have to unmute yourself now because everybody's been muted. But if Judy and Paul and Jill can come back on and everybody else sort of mute yourselves. If you have any group notes that you took, please send them. Yael just put in the chat. We'd love to be able to get some feedback from the group chats about what you all are thinking. And let's hear from our panelists. Last minute words about coming together after. Go ahead, Judy.
Well, I just thought it was really nice to meet other people from the field, and we had a really good conversation about how to think about appreciation differently and how to think about professional development differently. And and I wanted to echo what you said, Joy. I think the ProCon is people should take advantage of it. I was saying that normally it costs us about $1,200 to $1,500 to send somebody to the conference. I only can send a few people. And I really encourage, this is a unique opportunity that you can send more and more staff, and it's a way to be able to have them feel engaged, recognized, energized. So I just encourage everybody to take advantage of this unique, very unique opportunity with ProCon.
Terrific. Okay, thank you. Paul, are you there? You want to unmute yourself and tell us some last minute thoughts?
I would say that, even working with Judy 15 years ago, like sometimes the times that are toughest are the times that really bond you together as a staff. And this is an opportunity as much as a challenge to connect and to bond to people. And in these coming weeks and months, as people I keep using this word, people are going to be re-emerging from the pandemic, and we have a critical role to play as JCCs for the community, but as leaders, we also have that role to play with the staff. And how you show up at this time will be remembered years from now by your staff that are still with you, and it'll be part of why they're still with you.
Yeah, I agree.
So important. Jill, are you still with us? I only see a few people on our screen, so unmute yourself. Thank you, Paul, for that. It's so important. Jill, what do you have to add to that?
I was just gonna say similarly to what Paul was sharing in regards to, really thinking about the different ways that we're recognizing and supporting the staff, not only how we have been, but how we continue to do so. And that, it's a unique situation across the board. And so there's not a playbook for it, but, doing our best.
Terrific. If you have a question and you want us to ask it, please post it in the chat. And while we're waiting for some of our questions to come in, I certainly want to thank our panelists, Paul, Judy, and Jill, for joining us today. It was really terrific to be able to hear from each one of you about your individual different situations and how you're emerging from this. And you're 100% true and correct. We are emerging and we're reconnecting with our community and with our staff. As part of our Talent Management for All series, this is the 5th in the series. They have been recorded. If you'd like links to the recordings, you can email myself or Yael. And we want to tell you that we are not having a Talent Management for All webinar in April, but you do have the access to the professional conference. So we're skipping April, and we will be announcing shortly what our May, June, and July webinars will be focusing on, and resuming that in May. So I don't see any questions. I do see a few thank yous in the chat. So thank you all for being here with us. We really appreciate this. Please keep this at the top of your mind as you're starting to work hard with reemerging and welcoming your staff every day. Thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you, Yael, for helping me host, and we will see you soon. Take care.